Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to LadyGang. I am Becca Tobin here with Jack Vanek and Keltie Knight.
Good day.
Can I start?
Yeah.
Yeah. Are we just going to jump right into it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, it's time for.
No, actually, sorry, go back. What I wanted to say is, welcome to the LadyGang. Well, Becca said that part already. But what I want to say to everyone is this is part 2 of our Sharon Stone interview. So Sharon came, and we really only had her for 35 minutes, but then we ended up sitting and talking to her for an hour and 20 minutes, and it was all so good that we decided to split it into 2 parts. Mm-hmm. So if you haven't listened to part 1 from last week, go back and listen to part 1, and then come back. Or you could listen to them in any order. But I just want to say welcome back to Sharon Stone epicness. If you're going to love it. Now I'm ready.
Wow.
Okay. Now it's time for.
Good week.
Yes, it is.
Bad week. Oh, no.
Okay. Bad week.
Uh-huh.
I'm officially at reading glasses age. And I even packed my reading glasses to read my Sharon Stone introduction because it was printed in 12 point and I can't read that anymore.
You need to start printing in big font.
I know, but then my printer goes through.
Keltie, do you also know that you're doing voice?
Oh, shit. My printer goes through so much ink and ink is so expensive.
Is this what?
I'm
You're
tell-
for real right now?
Ink is my printer. I have the HP Tango. I don't know what's going on or whatever. It goes through ink. Like I have to replace it weekly. It's crazy. And
Weekly?
What are you printing
I
out?
print the LadyGang.
We don't podcast
That's
that much.
it.
I know. And I print a lot of shipping labels because I'm always shipping stuff to my friends. Anyway, so I'm just telling you.
You idiot.
I am. I'm not a good friend in real life, but I'm always sending gifts to my friends.
I've never received a single gift from
Me
you.
neither.
But I see you in real life more than I see anyone in my life. I just sent my friend Nicole a bunch of Fabletics for the Rockettes this season. You know, anyway, so I wear reading glasses now, and so much so that I need to wear them like pretty much all the time. I'm even thinking of getting the ones where when you see out, it's normal, and then when you look down,
Bifocal.
a bifocal. As you know, before Sharon Stone came on our podcast, my most famous encounter with anyone was when I was a magician's assistant in Las Vegas.
I was actually
and the
thinking about that
magician I was
recently.
friends with David Copperfield. And one night we went to the Palms bar, and I was like, "Oh my God, I've made it! I'm around a celebrity." It was David Copperfield, which
Amazing.
is so.
He had a lot of swagger, wasn't he? Isn't he still with Claudia Schiffer?
No, I don't think so. Not anymore. Anyway, what's crazy?
I think that's a celebrity.
Yeah, he is.
But I love a music or a
definitely is a
magician.
celebrity.
Yeah.
So what's crazy about it is this whole time I was like, David Copperfield, what a guy. And like, you know, he's used the same promo photo for 45 years. Like
Yeah,
there's
confirmed.
no
Just saw
way
it.
that man looks like that. Like that picture is from
What a guy.
86. Like what's going on? Anyway, but then I was reading a book and the book was talking about a book called David Copperfield. David Copperfield is a book, a very famous book, and he stole that name. David Copperfield is not David, like, he's not just David Copperfield. It's a fake name. His name is not David. David Copperfield, the magician, took the name,
What's
I
his
think,
name?
from the book.
His name isn't-
David Copperfield.
But is his name not David something?
Let me look it up.
I have no idea what his real name is, but I had no idea there was a book called David Copperfield. And so now I'm like, is everything a lie?
That's the weirdest.
I'm just telling you, I was shook.
Okay, David Copperfield's actual name is David Seth Kotkin.
Yeah, exactly. And he took it. Did he take it from the book?
I am assuming so.
Anyway, David Copperfield is not real. Nothing is real. Nothing is
He's a
sacred.
magician. What do you expect?
Everything's fake. I didn't realize it based off
here
a
it is.
book.
Okay.
Is the person in the book a
He
magician?
adopted the stage name David Copperfield, taken from the famous Charles Dickens novel, because he liked its sound. That's it. Just because he liked the sound of it.
Whatever. Anyway, David
that.
Copperfield, you're a book. Becca?
You're a book.
You're a book.
Okay.
What?
Sharon, if you're listening to this, fast forward to your part. Don't listen to us be idiots.
Do you ever?
David Copperfield
There
is
are
a book.
times that we have guests that I so don't want to disappoint, and I get worried when
are
these
good
really amazing people come on, and if for some reason they listen to the podcast that they did, that they have to listen to this shit for 20 minutes.
I don't think that anybody that we're really, really, really impressed by is going to listen to the podcast.
And that's the thing that gets
I think
me
Sharon
through.
loved us, and I think she will listen to the podcast.
You
I
think
think
so?
she will
I don't
listen to
think
it
so.
while she's painting a painting.
I don't think
don't
that's
think
not. It's
so.
not soothing.
We are not soothing.
She's very soothing. I've never felt
She
better about
is,
myself.
but we're not.
So soothing.
She made me feel very comfortable with the next 40 years of my life.
Wow.
Like if she's 61, I'm 41. I'm like, I'm still going to be wearing cool jeans.
Yeah, it's a choice.
Yeah, I
That's
definitely.
such swagger.
Yeah.
right.
I think we need to step up our
I don't have
game.
any swaggers I don't have swagger
can't.
now, but I will get swagger.
That's why I always say, I'm like, later in life, I'll have way better style. And I'm like, I don't think so. I think this is it.
This could be it. Okay, so my good week is that I have really made incredible strides in not giving a about Hollywood.
Oh, okay.
Amazing strides. I went
Even more so than regular?
before I mean I cared about what people thought that were in positions of power for sure. I did not ever want to have a bad exchange, whatever.
Right. No, you were like a badass on the LadyGang podcast, and then a little more meek in needing to be liked by Hollywood.
Totally.
In your real life.
The people that made decisions in
Yes.
Hollywood.
Yeah.
So I was recently at an event and I had the pleasure of being around a lot of very important people in the business. I think I talked about it a little bit in a couple episodes ago, and I was sort of anxious, but I was like, but I feel like I don't care anymore. But I have this thing where I can do that. Before an audition, I'm like, I don't feel like I care. But then I'll go into the room and suddenly I'm like, I do care.
Yeah.
So I don't trust my feeling of not caring anymore. So I was like, I don't think I care, but I'm going to see how awkward I am at this experience of having to interact.
But you could also just be awkward because that's an uncomfortable position to be in.
Right, which
I
I
feel
was-
super awkward.
Yes, which I was incredibly awkward. I was so awkward. I looked at one of the most powerful women in television and haven't seen her in a long time, and she looks amazing. She looks great. She should. She has access to but she's a beautiful woman. And I was like, oh my God, it's so good to see you. And I just, because I have nothing to talk, we have nothing in common, nothing to talk about. I was like, you look amazing. You have not aged since the last time I saw you, which was quite a while ago. And I asked her if she was drinking baby's blood.
Wait,
She's
what?
got that
I was like, how do you
adrenochrome.
look so young? Are you drinking baby's blood? Something really,
No.
Something like
you
that.
Keltied.
I did. And then I
Verbal
had
diarrhea.
another experience with somebody else. It was so awkward, but that's my bad week. My good week is that I didn't care. I didn't care at all. Somebody actually didn't say goodbye to me that I knew very well
Yeah.
and had a whatever.
Irish exit?
No, he chose to say goodbye to a lot of other people.
Oh, no.
And not
you
me.
weren't important enough?
I wasn't important enough. And in his world, I'm not.
Yeah.
Right.
So I was like, that would have
Crushed
been
you.
really devastating.
Yeah.
And I would have been on my high horse about him, I worked so hard. I didn't give a and it was I don't know what happened. I hope it never leaves me, but I just don't care anymore.
Yeah. Feels good, right?
Feels so
You know what
good.
era you're in?
What?
Your Sharon Stone era.
Ooh,
I hope so.
Maybe
I really hope.
she's already rubbed off on you.
I mean, if only an ounce of that. But no,
I love that for you, Becca.
I think it is.
I
It's
feel the same.
right? I don't
And it's
care.
weird. I
Guys,
should.
welcome
I
to the
should-
dark side.
No, I should care more.
But Jack, your livelihood didn't ever depend on these people liking you.
No, I know.
Right. Yeah. So it's
Think about something. There are people in your life that you care tremendously or have about how you come across or what they think of you
No, for sure.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it.
in Hollywood.
Yeah.
more fun.
Okay. Yeah.
It's more fun. I just don't know. I just want to go in and make my money and do my job, and I just don't know. I used to think the other day I was reading some of the reviews of the podcast, and I used to remember we used to read them and it was mean tweets and stuff, and I used to think it was so funny because it really didn't faze me.
Yeah.
I was like, these people think I'm an idiot, and it really didn't faze me. And then I went through a period where it did actually faze me. I was really sensitive about it. And now I'm I actually hated the way that felt, and so I refuse to even let you in. I'm just.
Well, that's why I don't even. I mean, I get phased by shit, but that's why I don't look at it because it's it would literally crush. We're the same. It would crush my soul.
Yeah.
But it's
But
that's
I used to be
creating the
strong.
boundary.
I'm not anymore.
That's okay. Well, then don't read the reviews.
I'm excited. No, it's it's better not to care.
It's really freeing.
It's freeing. It's scary. it's like, who am I? Does anything matter? But also I'm down for it.
Nothing matters. You're good. Number 1, I'm doing a new thing that anytime I leave and go out of town, I am taking the first flight home, no matter how much I've partied, no matter how hungover I am. I'm getting on the 6 o'clock flight, and it has changed my life.
Why?
And because I have really bad anxiety. Like when something is over, I don't want to linger. I'm like, I want to get home. I want to like take a shower, do a hair mask, like lay around on the couch.
Yeah.
So like getting out first flight is almost like I left the night before. I'm home by 8:30. Like I'm doing.
Redo you have a whole day to recover.
Yeah, I'm decompressing.
But as somebody who gets hangovers, I don't understand how you do that. Because even
no, it's just. I mean, I'm going to be hungover the whole day, no matter what. So I might as well just like suffer through the first thing I wake up, and I'm not even thinking about it. So that's what we did recently on a trip. And my bad week is I don't eat spicy food really. Like I like a 3 out of 10 just to like add a little something. And Jared and I went to eat the night before a flight, and it was at a place where like everything's spicy, but they don't tell you. It's just like everything you get is like a spice level of like an 8. And I never thought that like spice could affect my body.
Oh my God.
But now I understand.
I never actually have experienced the spice.
I would never even go. I haven't had spiceria either. I don't believe in
heard of
spice.
it.
It was the first time my butthole has been on fire. And Jared always talks about it because every time we go to Chipotle, he gets the red sauce.
Oh,
I don't know what that is.
Okay, wait. Chipotle is the place where I get it, but I don't think it has anything to do with the spice. I think it's the food.
Well, it's definitely the food. But do you get the red sauce?
Yeah, I do.
It's the red sauce.
It's just the red sauce?
No, it is just the red sauce.
It's really spicy.
Because Jared, every time he goes, he's like, I'm going to do the red sauce. And I'm like, Jared, you know what happens when you eat the red sauce? You're like, if there's fire in your asshole coming out for the next 24 hours. And he does it every time. And I never understood that until I ate level 8 spicy food, like a lot of it. And I'm still recovering from it. Still
White
recovering.
rice for you.
Because like as somebody with constipation, I'm like, there's no way.
Yeah.
I was like, nothing's
Well, now
gonna
you
get
know
this
how to-
moving.
Now you know how to.
Yep.
Get things moving.
Red sauce from Chipotle.
Red sauce
Wow.
is like a Jack's
It really is.
shit
It's-
pills, and it's just
It's foolproof.
I never knew. Learning something new every day.
Well, you're welcome, Sharon, if you're listening. Her asshole was on fire, and so are you.
The Lady Gang.
Before I want to talk about, I have folded every page in this book. I want to bring up a bunch of things that you said in the book. But since we're on the topic of significant others, I would love to be an owl or something and be a spy on the wall and watch Chris Knight do his life without me around.
Right.
Because I'm just fascinated by him, and I know he's different when I'm around because he just like goes into mute mode. But I want to know, because you're like, I know you guys have a friendship.
He's
and
so kind.
I know. What, like, so
best.
what is he like?
Best.
You guys met, I think, on an airplane with coming back from Vegas or something like
He's
that.
very kind.
Yeah.
He's very thoughtful. He's really open to just whatever. You know what I mean? I remember saying to him, I have 2 people, 2 very diverse talent that both need representation. And I'd like to mention them to you.
Yeah.
And I think that you might like both of them, even though they're so oddly different. But they both need representation right now.
Yeah.
And I think for some reason they'd both be interesting to you.
Okay.
Ooh.
And I told him who they were. And one was a very famous sort of rock person. And one was a person who was started as a kid star and was an older man now, who was kind of a legend, but old now. And I explained to him why I thought that he would understand both people. And he was like, oh, that's so interesting, Sharon. I really sort of get that. And I think he ended up working with both of them.
Oh, wow.
And, you know, it was just his ability to have this emotional intelligence along with the business sense of how he could both economically
Make money.
and psychologically work with both of these extraordinarily diverse people was fabulous.
He has no ego.
No.
And that is what is so surprising with him being a music manager. Your idea of what that is so different from who he is, but that's why he's so successful.
But he was also able to have this business conversation with me.
So smart.
About music and not say to me like, what the hell would she know?
Right.
You know what I mean? Why would she think?
Never belittling.
Never.
Why would she think that she should know anything? Which is such a common reaction when you try to talk to men about business.
Oh,
yes. Oh, it's so true.
It's so true.
Where do you think you would be now had you been a man? I really am curious because you obviously are in a very wonderful place.
I feel like you'd be running.
I'd probably run a studio.
Yeah.
You'd be running a studio.
I'd probably be running a studio. Yeah.
It's not too late.
Yeah.
LadyGang Studios, it's available. It's super great. Okay, the last thing I want to ask you, and we can definitely take this out, is I just want to tell you a little story. So I think at some point, Chris came home and he was like, look what Sharon gave me. And it was just this giant bag of weed. And it was like, this
is that when she quit? She's like, I have so much weed laying around.
And it was this really funny gag because we're mushroom people. And so we had, and every time I opened the safe, Sharon Stone's weed would come and we'd be like, what's up, Sharon? It was so poignant. Anyway, thanks for the weed. I gave it to my friends. And I thought that was so funny.
Great.
Okay, when we come back, we're going to talk about the book. Okay, so Sharon wrote this book, The Beauty of Living Twice. It came out last year, a year and a half ago.
Right, and since sold in 22 countries.
22 countries, New York Times bestseller across the world.
I love the cover, by the way. It is so chic.
Yeah.
And people might, if you don't know Sharon's story, The Beauty of Living Twice is because you essentially died and came back to life.
Right.
Can you talk briefly about what happened to you, what you felt before, and how it changed your life?
I had a massive stroke and a 9-day brain hemorrhage. And I had a really hard time getting anyone to believe me that I was having a brain hemorrhage, even at the hospital. Because it's just so crazy. I had the same thing when I was in menopause. I kept going to the doctor saying something is terribly wrong with me. And I was getting so skinny, I was like teeth on a stick. And I was sweating and I was so sick. And all these men were like, they were testing me for leukemia and MS and all these diseases. And I was just sicker and sicker and sicker. And finally, this amazing Iranian lab technician woman turned around and said, when they walked out of the room, "You're in menopause." And I said, "What?" And she said, "You're in menopause." And then the men walked back in and she turned back around. And they were like, "Well, we're going to test you today for, leukemia and MS and all this stuff." And I kept thinking, I'm dying. And I'd be getting lost on the way home. And I was like, I'm losing my mind and I don't know what's going on. And I left and I called my gynecologist and I said, "I think we should test me for menopause." And she's like, "Sure, come on over. I'll give you a blood test." I mean, I was 61 or something, 62. Oh, wow.
Is that late, early?
That's late.
Late.
Very late.
But because I'd had a stroke and I'd had this really intense brain bleed, my vertebral artery had ruptured. At a certain point, I couldn't have periods because I would pass out. My body couldn't handle it.
Right, sure.
So I'd had what's called a uterine ablation, which is basically they microwave the inside of your uterus. So you still have your cycle, but you don't bleed, which I'd highly recommend to anyone who just doesn't want to have kids anymore because it's the greatest thing that ever happened.
I mean, truly, I'm just sitting here and being like, cool.
Wait, that's different than like a hysterectomy?
A hysterectomy, they take the whole unit out.
No, they take nothing out, but you just don't bleed anymore. It's the greatest thing that ever happened.
And you can do that just like if you want to?
It's an in and out patient, same day. It's the greatest thing that ever happened.
Crazy.
And so I didn't recognize that I was having menopause because I had already stopped bleeding, 20 years ago.
Right, that makes sense.
And so I went and had this test, and of course I was in menopause. But, mansplaining was happening to me for like a year where I was being tested because Sharon Stone from Basic Instinct probably never goes into menopause.
Oh, yeah.
Right. She definitely doesn't.
And so it was just, and the same thing was happening to me when I was in the hospital. I was in there on a Dilaudid drip for days and days and days, bleeding into my brain. And they had given me an angiogram and missed it. And I was still just hemorrhaging into my brain. And finally, they said that I was going to have to go home because clearly I was faking it.
No.
And I said to my best friend, I'm dying. And you have to get them to do something. And so, as she says, Mimi, she went out and she said to the front desk that she told me she pulled a full Shirley MacLaine, that they agreed to give me one more angiogram and then I had to go home. And I was like, okay, right? But she said nobody sleeps 22 hours a day. She's in a coma.
Right.
Right? God. And so they did it, and they discovered that my vertebral artery was completely ruptured and hanging by a thread, and that I had my whole subarachnoid pool, which is your face, your neck, your spine, was full of blood. And they couldn't wake me up because they had to do surgery or I would die on the spot. So I had like a 7-hour surgery.
Oh my gosh.
And I woke up and I had 23 coils instead of an artery. And then I wanted to pull the dilaudid out, and they said, you can't because you'll go into seizure. Now you have to go into, I was in this, on this neurological wheel where other people were dying, and it was right after 9/11. So everything was playing on these TVs. Why they had TVs playing that trauma while we were all in trauma still, I don't understand. And people were dying across from me and screaming, and it was so traumatic to begin with. While we were all having trauma, I still don't quite get it. Then they moved me into intensive care, and I had to step down off the Dilaudid, which I think is why it made me, why I was smoking so much pot, and I was trying not to have brain seizures because I didn't want to have brain seizures in public. So I always kept pot in my purse because I didn't want people to see me having seizures. And eventually I just decided, I don't care, and I can't smoke pot all the time. And finally, Selma Blair worked with Biden and finally got a Disabilities Act, which, we didn't have any coverage in the business.
Right.
And everybody was so cruel in the business anyway, and it just became stupid. So, and as we all know, nobody wanted my opinion about anything anyway. So it was, I was basically blackballed, so forget it. So I decided to just quit smoking pot, which was very difficult.
I'm sure,
because I had been on Dilaudid so long, which is synthetic heroin. Mm-hmm. And so it was very difficult to totally stop smoking marijuana. And it was hard. The whole situation has not exactly been a cakewalk.
Gosh.
You say after Basic Instinct, you vowed to be less weak on the outside and less available to be eaten alive.
Ooh.
That's actually one of my favorite lines in the entire book. What did that mean to you? Less weak on the outside? Because you don't say less weak. Less weak on the outside and less available to be eaten alive. I just love that.
Well, everybody really likes you when you do everything everyone asks and tells you to do.
Amen.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody likes you when you have boundaries. And I had to learn to grow some boundaries. And the more I started to become self-possessed, and the more that I understood what boundaries really meant through trauma therapy and PTSD therapy, the less people started to like me. And the more I understood how fantastic and healthy that was.
Okay, this is something that I absolutely love, and it's very Sharon. Obviously, it's from her book. She said, "Style is what you do with what's wrong with you." Barbara Streisand's nose, Danny DeVito's size, Cher. Let's face it, they're all loaded with style. Those tears begin when you're a kid and you don't get what you think of as the good thing, and you suffer quietly. And then you courageously figure out how to make the thing you've got so fabulous that it becomes the thing what everyone else has to have.
Wow.
The School of Sharon.
I know. I'm got like a master class on like how to be alive. It's so true. So what did you think the thing was what makes you stylish?
Well, I remember how when I was going to do Irreconcilable Differences, and Chuck Shire and Nancy Meyer were my neighbors, and they used to always notice how I wore my pants short. And then I'd wear high heels. And they would go, that's just so cool. And Nancy was like, look how your pants are always short. And you wear high heels. You're like a French girl. And I would think, I can't get pants that are long enough for me.
Oh. You're like, I was a model, bitch.
But in reality,
you couldn't.
They didn't make pants long enough for me.
There wasn't a tall size back in the day.
No, there weren't tall pants in the 80s, right? Like pants that would fit me and jackets that would. So, of course, I rolled up the sleeves of my jackets because the sleeves were never long enough for me and the pants were never long enough for me.
That's amazing.
So, of course, I wore my pants short. And the only way to make that cool was to
emphasize.
Rock it.
Yeah, you had to lock that in.
With
right?
the heel.
I love it. I mean, it really is true. It's like,
Did you ever feel ugly? Like as a woman, did you ever have, or as a young girl, teenager?
Oh my God. I was this tall when I was 15. And then this is not as deep as my voice really is. Wow. I had to take speech therapy when I came here. Because my voice was so deep that my vocal cords would rub together and I would lose my voice.
Wow.
So I had to raise my voice an octave so that I didn't keep losing my voice at work. So I had to go take this thing where they'd put a Kleenex in front of the microphone.
Yeah.
And then I would have to do these lessons to raise my voice. Because my dad's voice is so one of those voices like where the guy sings the deep voice.
Yeah.
So all of our voices are really, really deep. So my voice was so deep and I was so tall at 15 that everybody thought I was a boy. So, and I had a shag because Clute happened. Yeah. And I thought she was the coolest thing that ever happened. I thought Jane Fonda was just it. So I cut my hair like that. And then I had this voice. And of course, none of the boys' voices had changed yet. Oh. So I was like, hey, hello, And that's pretty weird, because there I am, flat-chested, 9 feet tall, with a shag and this voice.
Wow.
Of course, I thought I was some kind of freak.
Wow.
This is, sorry, I want to segue to freak
wait,
to freak.
But wait, I have a question in between. So from that to acting, so what is the, I guess, like, how did you end up being one of the most beautiful women in Hollywood? Like, who discovered you? How did you get there? Like, I so think curious.
What really happened was Ellen Mirojnick, who did the costumes for Basic Instinct. She chose the color of my hair, and she chose how my makeup would be done. And she, like, the makeup artist put way too much makeup on me. And then I'd go into my trailer and I'd take the makeup off with Ellen.
Been there.
And he said, he would say, I'm just going to keep putting it on you. And I'd say, and I'll just keep taking it off.
Amazing.
Because he wouldn't let me have an opinion.
Of course.
And so Ellen and she picked this great color of hair for me. And she made all these color choices of my clothes. And then I had, of course, this amazing cinematographer. And all of a sudden, I saw myself on film and I just looked amazing, right? And then they let me screen the movie on my birthday for my friends before it came out.
Oh.
And I said, oh my God, look how I look. And the person sitting next to me said, that's how you look, stupid. And I said, it isn't, but I'm smart enough to know how to do that from now on.
Wow.
Right? Because I was like, I didn't know like the exact right hair color and how to do my makeup and how to get dressed correctly. And then I had this friend who was a stylist, and she came over and she taught me how to hold my handbag. And she taught me what you do. And I was like, okay. And then she'd have me over to her house for dinner, and she would serve me and show me all the things.
Wow.
Because, I grew up, my parents were both child servants. My dad was given away when he was 4 and grew up in somebody's barn stall. And my mother was given away at 9 and was somebody's maid, housekeeper, and laundress. So, my dad made 14 grand a year. And we thought we were wealthy because we grew up in really lower middle class farm country Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
So, we didn't know that we didn't have money because everybody was the same,
Yeah.
right? So I went to New York with $50. Manhattan, $50, right? And so I'd go to my modeling appointments and go through every payphone all the way back to Elizabeth and Houston, where I lived in a 5th floor walk-up with another person in a studio apartment in bunk beds,
Yeah.
looking in the phone booth for change to see if I could take the subway and get home or if I had to walk 80 blocks.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So
Insane.
Yeah.
And then is that like, I think so much has been made of like the high-low dressing, like you're fancy, and then of course you like show up in the Gap turtleneck of all things, which is like your fashion, one of your
and that
fashion
again was Ellen Mirojnick.
But like, was it a plan? Was it like, no, I'm going to be cool. I'm going to wear the Gap turtleneck? Or were you literally like too busy to care about?
The FedEx truck ran over my dress.
No.
And it had a giant tire track down the front of it.
This is for what award show again?
The Oscars.
Oh, right. The big one.
Holy
Right?
shit.
Have you heard of that?
The Oscars.
And I was like, oh my God.
Oh, no.
And so I had this amazing bodyguard, Kristen, who passed away from neuroendocrine cancer. And I said to Kristen, I can't get Ellen on the phone. You have to go find her. Find her somewhere. Just find her. And she found Ellen, and I'm like, you got to get her here. I don't know what to do.
What was the dress like that got run over?
It was pink.
Really?
And I was like, I don't know. And it had this huge black tire track down the whole front of it.
I could have seen you making that work, though.
And I was like, and Ellen was like, go get all your favorite things out of the closet. I'm like, I don't have favorite black tie things, Ellen.
Right.
She goes, just get the stuff you like, just anything. And so I just started throwing things all over my bedroom floor. And so we just put this thing together.
Wow.
And then I thought, well, if I'm going to do this, I should do it for a reason. And so I called Mickey, God, what's his last name? Who was the head of the Gap. And I said, I'm thinking of wearing a Gap t-shirt to the Oscars. But if I do, it'll cause a big sensation. And I want to know that you'll give a donation to a charity if I do that. Because I want you to give it to homeless children and their mothers if I wear a Gap t-shirt.
Oh my gosh.
Because it's going to cause a big sensation to the Gap. I didn't tell him I had nothing else to wear.
Yeah.
And he said, yeah, of course I will. And I said, but I need a fax saying that you're going to do it. And he's like, you need a fax? I'm like, yes, Mickey, I need a fax. And I gave him the fax number, which was in another room. And I had my mother standing by the fax and my sister standing in the hall. And I'm on the phone. And so my mother's standing there and she's like, we got the fax. And my sister's like, we got the fax. And I'm like, okay, Mickey, we've got the fax. And I mean, it was like a half an hour before leaving.
Wow.
And so I felt like, okay, it doesn't matter what people say because I did a good thing.
Yeah.
And so we got money for homeless women and children. And so I wore the Gap t-shirt.
But you looked fierce.
I know.
Like, that's the thing. It
So
wasn't like you wore the Gap.
So I was
looked
putting my
amazing.
hair up in a French twist, right? And I was pulling the pins and I was in the car and I put my arm up and my mother saw that this underarm of the shirt was ripped out. And my mother's like, Jesus Christ. And she came running out with this needle and thread, sewing the armhole closed through the window of the car. And then my mother's super psychic. And the car starts driving out the driveway and I hear my mother go, Susan Sarandon. And I realized I wasn't going to win.
Oh.
Right? As I left. And I went, oh, okay. Okay, I'm not going to win. Which was good because I was very grounded when I got there.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
Holy shit.
When is the movie of your life coming out?
Yeah.
Like, what?
Who would be... your ideal, like, I mean, now with AI, you could probably play yourself, but like, is there I mean, she's like, I will make the decisions. I will.
No, she has an eye for casting. I think we could leave it up to her.
I agree. But if you could, like, if you could cast your own biopic, who would you want to, like, is there someone in Hollywood that you would want to play younger you? And then you'll take over at 32?
Well, I adore Margot Robbie, so probably her.
Wonderful.
Probably
That'd
her.
be
I think
amazing.
she's the greatest.
She would
do
crush.
it. Oh,
I think
so
she's the
smart
greatest.
and lovely.
Yeah, so talented. After I saw her play Tanya Harding, I was like,
so
it. You're it, lady.
You're it. Okay, I want to go back to the book. Sorry. There's something, page 128, you say, I could see, you're talking about Hollywood, I could see how hard everyone else was working to be liked. Mm. And I freaking love that. Because you walk into a room and everyone's trying to be the coolest, richest, most fabulous, seen
Talking
person.
in the high voice.
Talking. Hello. Oh my God. Sharon. It's so good to when did you realize that? And then how have you, and then my next question is literally, when someone is an asshole in Hollywood, how do you handle it? Because you're so grounded and lovely, but you do go, you run in these circles.
It reminds me of a funny thing. When we were in Cannes and we had Total Recall there, and it was such a big deal for me, because it was so new. And we were at the Eden Rock, which is this gorgeous, gorgeous decap hotel, so beautiful.
If you need a reminder of this hotel, in our book,
It's where you got kicked out of
it's where I got kicked out of George Clooney's party. Okay. So it is fabulous.
So we're having this party, and the Gypsy Kings were playing.
Okay.
Wow.
And the Rolling Stones were there, Eric Clapton was there, every star you can imagine was there, and the Gypsy Kings were playing, and the music was amazing. And Steven Seagal, who I'd been in this movie with, who really is not a cool person.
Yeah.
He's the kind of guy that I was acting with him, and I was trying to talk to him about this scene, and he told me I was standing in his chi.
Ew.
And I was like, well, I'm unfamiliar with that. How big is your chi? I didn't know what the hell was happening. Anyway, so I was talking to Sven Nykvist, and Sven was Arnold Schwarzenegger's body double. And Sven also, in the movie that Ridley Scott directed where Joaquin Phoenix played the Emperor, Sven was the guy who wrestled the lion in the pit of the Colosseum.
Okay,
right?
yeah.
Right. So I was talking to Sven, who's the coolest and big, So I was talking to Sven, and Steven Seagal came walking up, and he's like, "So what are you guys doing?" And Sven goes, "We were just talking about what an asshole you are."
Oh my God.
But yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Sven for president. I love Sven.
And I think that was one of the absolute best ways I'd ever seen anybody handle it. I thought that was just fantastic because Sven is like a wall.
Right. So do you just take a mental note and you're like, or you just breeze past?
I just, when people are assholes, I generally don't do anything. Or I say, "I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said. Could you repeat that? I didn't really get it." Mm-hmm. And then they repeat it, and I say, "I just really still don't get it." Or
don't start doing that with me.
That was genius, because then they have to explain it again.
I guess that's over my head.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
I'm sorry, I don't really understand that.
Genius.
Because I don't.
Okay, so my last thing, we have to let you go. I could keep you here all day. I want you, we've had over 47 million different women and men across the world have listened to our podcast, which is, we're so excited and happy about our community.
You've been in their chi.
We've been in their chi. Our chi is small, but people have dipped in it. If you could tell the LadyGang listener one thing about life from where you're at and what you've been through and how to live a good life, how to be happy, when you what would you say? Like, what is the important stuff? What do we do? Because our generation is in this, like, we're obsessed with the algorithm and the likes and the Instagram and, well, maybe it's just me, but like a good life is what?
I really genuinely believe that happiness is a discipline. Mm-hmm. And that pleasure is something that is momentary. And that if you go 3 days and you're not in your happiness, you have to have something that you do that reminds you to stay in your happiness. I have a bracelet that I put on that's very uncomfortable, and I put that on when I have gotten out of my happiness. And then I keep it on until I figure out what's happening that's taking me out of my happiness, and I repair it. If it means I have to exit people out of my life, I exit them out of my life, and I'm hardcore about it. I tell people that's it. Mm-hmm. And I don't change my mind. I don't. If I really have to exit someone, that's it. Unless they come to the table with, I'd like to sit down, I'd like to discuss it, I'd like to take responsibility for my actions, and they do. If they come back with gee, well, and oh, and this and that, then I just block them. If I've done something myself, I make sure I take responsibility for it and handle it and get myself straightened out. If I'm missing sleep, eating right, exercise, any of the basic rudimentary things, I straighten up. Whatever it is, I make sure I get it straightened up, but I only let a certain period of time go by. Now, I make exceptions sometimes if I'm doing something out of respect for another. Like, I hired someone who was my best friend's kid, and I was trying harder because I wanted to honor someone else. So I gave it longer period of time. Yeah. But if otherwise, I don't make exceptions to that rule. I only do things if I keep this very specific, that happiness is a discipline, and it's a discipline that I keep. Because I believe that your own internal happiness, that you're the hub of a wheel of activity. And if you don't keep that together, life works in concentric circles. I know that the masculine identity is linear, but as a woman, I believe that it's concentric. And that we have to stay, the center has to stay pure.
Mm-hmm. Ooh. That is something that I just found out about being a mom, actually. I realized that I had to be so good with myself in myself, and energetically, everyone in my house is good when I'm good.
Exactly.
And everybody, all my friends who are like, I don't have the time to meditate. I don't have the time to do the work for myself because I have to be there for my family. I always thought it was kind of like, I don't know, I couldn't subscribe to it completely. And now that I see it with my own eyes, I'm like, you take the 40 minutes to exercise. You take the 20 minutes to meditate. Because like when you're good, you really are the center of that universe and everyone else is good.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Happy wife,
profound.
happy life.
Oh yeah.
I love
Amen.
it.
Yep.
Well, Sharon Stone, guys. This was amazing. The Beauty of Living Twice is available. We'll link to it. You should definitely read this book. I do hope you make a movie of it. I think it would be fantastic. And
I can say that Hillary and Chelsea Clinton are making a documentary about my life.
Oh, no big deal.
Buried the lead there.
Hold on, let me open that up to the top. Oh, of course they are. And her documentary was so good.
Wasn't it great?
Amazing.
Oh my God, it was incredible. Oh, I'm so excited about that.
Oh my gosh, it's going to be amazing.
That's amazing.
Okay, well, we will celebrate it in a big way.
Thank you.
If you need dancers, if you need a can, like a cheerleader can girl at the premiere.
I need you guys to be my backup singers.
We'll be there. Gap shirts, we're ready to go.
Yes.
You're fantastic. Thank you for your time. And we will see you next Tuesday.